Hello again, and welcome back to Broadleaf Junkie. It's been a little while, and when I say a little while, you can take it the same way as my I'll keep it short and snappy. The world of cigars is, in my opinion, mainly shaped by social interactions. You simply get to meet a lot of incredible people from all over the world, whether it is at events, at the next lounge, purely by chance on the streets or around the corner at your favorite brewery, or online. And that's how I got to know Jeff, a total tobacco geek. We met through a platform called the Cigar Dojo and hooked from the very first cigar he smoked a few years back. He approached cigars very analytically, diving into characteristics of different types of tobacco and what they bring to a profile flavor-wise, and then it just escalated.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Jeff calls it failing forward, just like the way he's building his own brand right now, with everything that comes with it. And he's quite hard to stop when it comes to talking about his passion. But let him tell you himself how it all came about in this very first episode of our talks.
Okay. So, my name is Jeff Morey. I am based out of the Madison, Wisconsin area. I've been in, I've been enjoying cigars since probably 2011, 2012. Um, it was kind of one of my buddies was like, oh, maybe we should try a cigar. And I'm like, okay. And I was immediately hooked. I remember my first cigar. Uh, what was it? It was a Perdomo Lot 23, Connecticut. And that was what started the evolution, I should say. Um, from there, I've been part of multiple different cigar groups, such as Cigar Dojo, and then there's a bunch of various Facebook ones, and then Discord these days. And from there, I did some cigar reviews through Cigar Dojo. That was back about 10-ish years ago. I believe that they're still published online as well, too. And then right around the pandemic time, COVID started closing a lot of stuff down, and the role that I was in for my professional career, I would normally travel quite a bit. And so COVID shut things down, so we weren't able to travel as much. And so to keep my hands, my head, just busy, so I didn't go crazy. I started cataloging every single cigar that I had in my cigar collection, and I did broke it down by wrapper, binder, filler, factory, year, like as much as you possibly could. I just geeked out on it. And I found commonalities. And from there, I thought, heck, well, why don't I try my hand at cigar rolling? So I started small and evolved in that. So for probably the past 7 years, I've been cigar rolling and then also growing tobacco, not on a super large scale. And I think at most 40 to 50 type plants. And I do so far different varieties every single year. And eventually, I keep saying each year, I want to breed different types of tobacco with different qualities that I've seen, or different flavors, or different strengths, different structures in the plant. Um, but life gets busy, so I haven't dove into the breeding aspect of tobacco yet, but I know how to do it. Um, I just need to put the knowledge into motion.
So you grow tobacco, you use this tobacco in the cigars you roll, or is this not there yet?
And not there yet. My first harvest, I'm still aging, and I haven't dove into any tobacco that I have grown yet. Um, but actually, I shouldn't say that. I have dabbled a little bit with it, but just to test to see if it's ready or bringing out the aromas and strength that I want at that time. So, and then in an actual blend that I've been doing so far, it's not implemented into those. What is in the blends that I roll, I've partnered or picked up a tobacco from a couple different retailers or wholesalers in the States, so in the United States. And then I just started trying everything and I bought all these different varieties. So right now I got about 360 pounds of tobacco from 14 different countries.
But
So,
this is
and then
all small amounts of different tobaccos that you.
yep, yep. I think the most of any one type that I have is probably 10 to 15 pounds. And that, I mean, some good wrappers that are in there, some good filler that is very, uh, not often available. So I pick those out for, special little projects or, for good buddies like yourself, to try different things out and just, I get excited about trying different things that we don't normally see that's in the cigar industry right now, and just seeing how that is. Whether it's making a puro or combining certain things that, us as cigar smokers, we've thought, hey, what if we mix this leaf with that leaf or swap out the binder and the wrapper on this cigar and see how it tastes? Now, doing that with a premium cigar, it's going to be different. It's different fields, different types of tobacco, different growing methods. And every single year, tobacco grows a little bit differently. Every plant grows a little bit differently because there's subtle nuances in the seasonalities, each year and how that affects the plants when they grow. Um, so yeah, I've been really keen on some Brazilian tobacco, Peruvian tobacco. I just eh, exploring this aspect of it gets me really excited about educating myself with different types of tobacco flavors and strengths and aromas, but also being able to share that with my buddies as well too, and just kind of take the next step in cigar smoking. I guess I would say, you could be like uh, a smoker here and there, a casual smoker. You could be an everyday type smoker, but going onto the blending and growing and just kind of doing that on my own, I just kind of elevated things into a different fashion to open up more of my mindset on the whys.
The why is why you like it, or why you do it, why you find something in it. What do you mean with the whys?
So yeah, exactly like what you said. Why I like this flavor, why I like this, the combustion on it, how it plays with different other types of tobacco leaf that we might not have seen in the consumer market or haven't seen in a long time. But then I also get, so there's the personal aspect when it helps with blending and growing, all the additional steps in the process of making a finished cigar, but also uh, educating other people or you know, a good buddy on Cigar Dojo, Joe. He's growing some tobacco as well now too. So getting other people excited about the understanding of the entire process of tobacco, which a lot of big factories do. If you were to go to like a factory tour or something like that, or a field tour, um, but I don't live in South America. I don't live in Florida, but this is in Wisconsin. This is what I'm experiencing here, which Wisconsin used to be a very big tobacco producer and cigar producer. So that's another reason why I want to kind of bring the Wisconsin aspect into it as well, and what the seasonalities do here that affect the final outcome of how that leaf tastes. Because it's very hot and humid in Wisconsin, at least right now. It's either hot and humid or very cold and dry.
That's the part of you growing tobacco in Wisconsin. But right now you're working with a lot of different tobacco you find somewhere. What's the your process on that? How do you find tobaccos? What do you search for when you go out and say, okay, and today I find or buy tobacco?
Yep. So what I look for when I started, uh, anything and everything. I wanted to get my hands on every single variety I could get my hands on and try it out. From there now, as more blends I've created, it kind of narrows down that funnel a little bit. Some tried and true ones. Then I load up on those types of tobaccos that I to have on hand, because on the home rolling aspect, availability is very volatile. So it could, Connecticut broadleaf could be available right now for maybe 4 months, maybe 8 months. You never know. So the supply chain on it is kind of random in a sense. Um, but and then sometimes I'll find that there's very special, like I mentioned Brazil before, Brazilian Connecticut wrapper. One of the suppliers had some wrappers from 2012 and 2013, very limited in inventory, and I'm like, I got to scoop that up. Or I scoop up as much as I could. I didn't want to take all of it. I wanted other people to be able to enjoy it as well, but pick up enough of it that I felt like I could definitely find at least one, if not, maybe a handful to a dozen different blends that leaf might play well with.
All right. So you the thought process is, I want to find out what the leaf does when I combine it with something that it's not usually combined with, or run me through the
Yeah,
process, how you
yeah,
blend something.
yeah, no problem. So it's a little bit of that, trying out different varieties. Um, how does I'll use the example of the Brazilian Connecticut. How does that play with Nicaraguan tobacco? How does it play with Nicaraguan Esteli, Jalapa, Condega, Ometepe? How does it play with those types of tobaccos in a blend, or a big list of Dominican types of tobaccos, and then also, um, you know, part of what I was doing was talking to other buddies and just saying, "Hey, do you want to try your hand at blending and I'll roll it?" So getting ideas from other people on what tobaccos they want to see, try to get together. So it might not be something that I would have immediately thought of, um, and trying it on that aspect as well too. And then different years, you know, one thing with the home rolling aspects that I've noticed is, something that they experience in the premium cigars and the larger companies, differences of or nuances within the different years. So like the Brazilian Connecticut 2012 wrapper that I have is a lot more smoother and creamier, whereas the 2013 year version, it's got a little bit more of a punch to it, a little bit more of leather aspects um, that just make the consistency of the leaf different based upon even that aspect.
But just a bit
Mm-hmm.
from okay. And then I wonder how that came to be, how this um, fascination for tobacco came to be, how someone went from, okay, I like to smoke a cigar to I like to buy tobacco and try it myself.
Yep. I,
What
I,
what was the idea behind it? This okay, this is
right,
a cigar, I like it. This is the tobacco in it. Let's try something else with it
right,
that nobody has done before, or just that I didn't do before.
right. Well, and I think it stemmed from when I started cataloging everything, and trying my hand at rolling. I was getting frustrated seeing all these expensive cigars coming out. And I'm like, I'm I want to prove it to myself that I can make something that tastes the same, if not better, for a marginal price point, and put a little bit of elbow grease into it and see what happens. Uh, don't get me wrong, I like to collect cigars as well too. However, um, there's something to be said. I think in life, you got to get your hands dirty. You work with the earth. You go through the steps to appreciate it even more, but really understand. I mean, some cigars can be expensive for certain reasons, but everybody has it in their power to roll a cigar. It's practice. There's no shortcuts. You get better and better as time goes on. And knowing that you made that, and you could pit it up against a 30, 40, 50, $100 cigar and it tastes the same, if not better. Like, it just blew my mind because so much stuff is so expensive these days.
Yeah. So that you just, I mean, it's basically homemade, handmade, what you do. It started as an experiment.
Yes, 100%.
And even that, I would say, is already kind of an escalation of, hey, I like cigars.
Right,
So,
right,
do what I can do. And
right.
you don't, I don't think that you would roll like a lot of cigars in one blend, but a lot of different blends in very tiny amounts.
Hmm. Exactly. It's very what I make is very very micro batch. I mean, I could do, for buddies that I've done, or just, certain blends that I put together, at one particular uh moment I could be doing 20 to 100 cigars of a particular blend. Um and I don't cap it at that, but I'm just one man. I'm only one guy. I can only do so much, and I only have so much time in the day as well too. But I'm doing something with it every day. No matter how busy my schedule is, I'm always doing something with tobacco every day.
But it is a hobby. It's not your day job.
Correct. Not yet. That would be great if it. Not yet. But it started as a hobby, and um, I just think that it's good to keep your hands, your mind, um, your thoughts busy. or productive. I guess I should say, not just busy, but productive, because you never know. You know, everybody. I'm a firm believer that we all have it in us to be able to do anything, but it does require time, work, and effort in order to get there, and perseverance. You know, um, it's just like working out. Do you want to go work out every single day, or every, you know, no, sometimes you don't, but you know what? You still got to go do it, uh, because that's your rhythm. You know, you don't want to get out of your rhythm of doing it.
Yeah, but um, was there a goal you had with this? Because it kind of sounds like something you were just doing in the moment with every
Yep,
step.
yep. So, the goal, um, I've always had a vision of what I want to do with it. Um, it's obviously changed a few times or tweaked a little bit over the years, but ultimately is being able to bring the blends I make to more people, um, to allow more people to try them, but also work with the factories um, in various countries, and be able to mass produce. Like I said, I'm one guy. My hands only work so fast, and I don't claim to be an expert. Um, I'm pretty quick, but I'm not a master roller by any means. But I put a lot of I get hyper focused, so details, small details, are very important. Um, so
I've seen
getting yeah,
your blend sheets with the
yep,
description. Is the tip towards foot or towards the other end, and
yep,
at the tip of the leaf towards the foot of the cigar or the tip of the cigar, and um, that I think was kind of amazing too, because you kind of put a lot of like close to mathematical thought into how could it taste when I do this.
exactly, exactly.
That's interesting. I mean, you sit down and think of a blend. You think that's a leaf that could contribute this to the blend, and then you also think, what is the ring gauge? What is the size I want to have this in? And
100%.
basically, so far, just for play.
Hmm.
And so that's geeky,
I know, I love it. Don't you?
very geeky. So what was it?
Yeah.
How did this come to pass? I mean, was it that really fascinates you or fascinates you this most about or this much about tobacco that you do this like this?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is talking with people. You know, it goes back to like two of my biggest goals in life. I genuinely want to go everywhere in the world, and I genuinely want to meet every single person, because everybody's got a story. So, on the wanting to meet people with cigars, a lot of it is just feedback that I've heard from people or just conversations that I've had with people. I'm like a sponge, you know, if there's an idea like, huh, why can't we try this? Why can't we do this? You know, what's it going to do? Um, it doesn't hurt to try it out. You know, the alternating of the tobacco leaf. That was a suggestion by one of the guys at Two Guys Cigars that I was on a work trip. I went there to meet up with a buddy who's a manager there. And I ran into one of his coworkers, and his coworker, we had a great conversation, and he said, "Yeah, some of these guys they put the tips towards the back or in front or whatever," and then that just blew my mind because I'm like, everything prior to that, I was having all the tips at the foot, but if you rotate them around, I mean, it's just adding a whole nother level of complexity into how you blend it. Because at the tips, the tobacco is typically where the strongest uh, flavors are going to be. The strength that is going to be the strongest where the nicotine is going to be. So if you have it all at the foot compared to flipping one leaf, that's going to adjust how that cigar starts out. But then you're going to have nuances towards the further back that you go, where other flavors or aromas of some of those leaves are going to be then increasing. In theory, and I think with some tobacco, it's going to work better than others. Um, but it's just it's taking tacos, for example, like cooking. You have your own specific taco recipe. Okay, that's great. Um, but then adding, you know, do you marinate that meat with that taco seasoning before you cook it? Okay. And then maybe you sprinkle a little bit of something else on at the end of it to add that little extra kick or puncher per se. Maybe you want it to taste a little bit more, have that cumin stand out a little bit more. You have that in your regular taco seasoning, but then you kick it in a little bit more once you're wrapping up, cooking your taco meat or uh, yeah, taco meat or anything, if you're doing steak, chicken, whatever.
Yeah. So blending you learned basically by um, curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. To be honest with you, it's I think what opened my mind up into blending more was just, when I started cataloging everything, I would
And
look at
let me ask this: you were cataloging cigars you bought and smoked with like liked it not, and then what was the tobacco in it, and what part was it I liked and what not, and what do I think was because of this type of tobacco, and so on.
100%. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And then I found commonalities between certain premium cigars that, oh, okay. Uh, I might like if I do research on a new cigar or something like that, and I look at what tobacco is in it that they made available that's in the blend, you know, then I can get kind of an idea. Nowadays, I can get kind of a rough idea of what I would expect out of it. Um, but previously, it was just, oh, I like this cigar because it's got, Criollo 98 and some Corojo in there. Um, okay. Well, this one also has those leaves, but it's also got, Dominican San Vicente and then maybe some Nicaraguan Esteli Lajero in there. So it the commonalities was my starting point, and then playing around with the leaf and experimenting with it is what kind of um, took it to another level and more understanding of it, working with it, smelling with it, seeing how long the leaves are, um, what the strength of it is, playing with the different leaf positions, the seco, the viso, the lajero. You know, you take a Connecticut broadleaf seco and compare it to some different lajeros. I mean, the thickness of the leaves might be somewhat similar because Connecticut broadleaf is so thick. I don't know. It's just I could geek out for hours on this and different types of leaf types just because it's just so fascinating. Um, and I know we've talked before, and it's like cooking. It's a, a steak recipe, or a steak seasoning. some people might like adding, ground mustard in there, or some might add in like chili powder or paprika. But then like different strengths of each of them. What is it going to be? Have more of a kick at the end because you added more cayenne pepper or something like that. A very similar kind of thought process when I look at like tobacco and blending as well too. But once again, we go back to every harvest year can be different. So uh, consistency can sometimes give and take in certain aspects on different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Always or ask one of guys from the industry if they think that blending a cigar is more like cooking or more like baking, because I think baking is more like go by the book, go step by step, and cooking is more like, okay, I have a feeling what this might add and that might add to the flavor.
Correct. Here's I just thought about this as you brought it up. The blending, and I'm just throwing this out there. The blending is almost like cooking, but then the aging is almost like baking.
Because you have to follow different steps in that order.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just thought of it, but in a nutshell, I would say 9 times out of 10, I would compare it mostly with cooking, seasoning, trying different things out, experimenting. Or, maybe you just like your your Jamaican chicken to taste one way the entire way, and that could almost be like your go-to cigar or whatever. I just like it tasting a certain way, and there's nothing wrong with that, because you know what you know what it's gonna taste like, and you know what you're gonna get.
But couldn't you say blending is like cooking and then rolling a cigar is like baking because you're following the steps you laid out before?
That's an excellent point. Yeah, you could say that too. That's because when you're rolling it, you have to let them sit for a little bit. I mean, you could smoke them right away, depending upon how much moisture content is in that leaf when you prep it up. But yeah, because you do when you blend, you want to see how that blend is initially. I always say, um, was it 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months? You know, see how it progresses as time goes on, because there's like resting in a state. It always gets uh, a little bit better if you just let that let it rest, let it simmer, let it just relax a little bit, chill out, um, and then you take a bite out of it, and it's just so good.
Yeah, that also was a very, very bad attempt from me for a segue, because
Yeah.
I would
No, it's
also
okay.
like to ask you, um, how did you learn to roll a cigar?
Good question. So, in this day of technology, I've been off of most forms of social media for about, oh my gosh, I can't even remember, maybe 8 years, 9 years. I'm on a couple of different cigar groups, but like Facebook, Instagram. I think I have an account, but I don't. I don't remember how to get into it. So, how I learned was I found this forum. It's Fair Trade Tobacco, and it's a bunch of regular people who grow tobacco at home. uh, a lot of home rollers, and I just learned from that. Just starting and making tons of mistakes and just continuing. I call it failing forward. Um, so I just kept making mistakes, and then eventually, um, it started looking better. It started tasting better. The airflow got better. Um, and then a couple YouTube videos. I think I watched maybe 3 or 4 YouTube videos, and I'll go back to those a few times, just to because as you learn and progress, you go back and you watch it again, and you might pick up different details, and that's what I did, and it's helped. So a forum of fellow people from around the world that grow tobacco, and some of them roll their own cigars. I learned from them, and a lot of them were people that were, uh, in the older generation that have been doing this for years. And in the last 7 years, I've probably had 2 or 3 mentors actually pass away. Just due to age, and so I greatly appreciate their time that they took to be able to share that knowledge because, um, you know, years ago, hundreds of years ago, it was a crop that was way more prevalent, and so that part excites me too, the history aspect of keeping an artisanal type of industry um, still going and thriving.
Yeah. So it's basically you seen a couple tutorials and then tried it yourself, trying them out until you now. How many different vitolas would you say you can roll?
Um, oh wow. Um, I like the Parejo, Lancero. I mean, anything with like a round cap. I could do any ring gauge. Torpedoes. I've done Culebras. Um, I have I have some molds for like diademas. But I haven't explored that yet just because I've been still narrowing down blends. So I typically go for, Parejo, more of a round cap, different ring gauge type size, just to lock in a blend, basically, just see how it tastes there. Um, and yeah, I think to answer your question, probably about a dozen, if not more than a dozen different types of vitolas. Uh, some just take a little bit longer for me than others.
Yeah,
But
of course,
but
have to try it.
yep.
What would you
And
say is the one you roll the most or like the most to roll?
yeah, I like that's the one I roll the most, but it's not that I like rolling it the most. No, I like to have fun with culebras. I made some culebras, and I just fun because some of them um require a different process in how I do it. So like uh with the pressing or making like a box press type cigar. Um or a culebra, kind of a similar type of premise. So like you the binder and filler still have to be moist enough, and then you have to get a wrapper on right away. So it's pliable enough so you're not cracking or breaking leaf as you make a culebra. Similar to like a box press, there has to be enough moisture content in there, after you bind it up, press it or use newspaper strips to create the shape. Um, and then put that wrapper on right away, opposed to letting it sit overnight and drying out further, because once you put it in that press, you want that wrapper already attached, like already put on, because otherwise it's going to be more difficult to try to wrap a box press cigar after the fact, at least in my opinion. I mean, that's kind of like more hard at more 90-degree angles than say like a circle.
I think there's only one who makes the box press cigar or roll the box press the box press cigar by hand. Everybody else uses molds for this. So I think there's just one who really.
Yeah, and I didn't even start with some cigar molds either. I started small when I started rolling cigars. It was a, a cutting board that we already had, a pizza cutter, uh, maybe some scissors, and there's so many different types of cigar glue that you can use. Which do you technically need it? No, I mean you could just use spit. It's not rocket science. Is it going to look the prettiest? Probably not, but you're going to get the flavors. You're going to get the aromas that you would, but, putting them in molds and everything like that. It makes them look pretty. It makes them look nicer, more consistency, and consistency looks better to the eye than, in most cases, consistency looks better to the eye than say a more rustic looking, type cigar. But for probably about a year, I used newspaper strips, cutting them to 1 inch, 2 inches long, and just use that. And um, eventually, because I didn't want to invest in a mold yet, because molds can be kind of expensive. I'm like, let me at least try it out with newspapers. So I know for certain that this is something that I want to continue doing um, before making the jump into molds. And yeah, that process evolved pretty quick because I'm like, I started running out of newspapers, and then I started asking all my friends and everything like that, like, give me your old newspapers, and they just looked at me all weird, and they're like, Jeff, everything's online these days. Who even gets newspapers? And I said, I do, and I want them.
Funny. So you have them rolled and then rolled into newspaper strips so that they don't lose the form.
Exactly. It'll tighten them. It's almost um, the same idea behind using a mold, because the newspaper strips, um, you can tighten it up. You can do it kind of loose if you want to make sure that there's adequate airflow. No, I tried it multiple different ways. I'm like, I'm gonna crank this sucker as tight as possible and see what happens. I'm gonna roll it use that newspaper strip just enough, just make it snug. Um, you know, and I've used the newspaper strip too loosely as well too, and gone back to cigars where the newspaper unraveled on itself. So experimenting on the pressure, the how tight you make it. Um, that's the key there, but it's way cheaper than a cigar mold. Uh, getting a newspaper page. I mean, heck, most people get newspapers and with their boxes of cigars that they order. I've saved all those papers and cut them up and use them as little newspaper strip molds. Um, so newspaper's cheaper than a cigar mold. I think cigar molds are. I mean, you can get older wooden ones on various, out there. I mean, they'll range from like 40 to, 200 plus bucks, depending upon how rare it is. Or, like a flying pig mold I saw on eBay once, and it was like 300 bucks for the mold. And I'm like, well, I could do that with newspaper strip. Um, but there's also nuances with different mold types. Wooden molds extract moisture out faster, and they dry up those cigars faster than say a plastic mold, which is what a lot of people, all the newer ones they're plastic. So plastic holds that moisture in a little bit better. So going back to a Calabra or a box press, a plastic mold would be better, in my opinion, at least for my skill level, to use for that type of vitola than say a wooden one, because the wooden one will pull that moisture out faster. And I want to make sure that there's uh, a little bit more moisture in there when I make the culebra or box press that cigar.
When I went to Cuba, I went to 2 different tobacco farms, and those
Yeah.
farms, they also rolled with what the government let them have with their own tobaccos, their cigars. And one of those guys um, did this also with the newspaper strips instead of molds, because he didn't have any molds.
Yep.
And he had no concept of it. He just did this like his dad, his granddad had done before with newspaper.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and newspaper, the actual material. So like in ads and stuff like that, you get the glossy, like sometimes glossy printed paper. I've tried that. It doesn't. Sometimes you'll get that ink on the cigar, and that's probably not what you might want to do. But like the actual breathability of actual newspaper is great for cigars. It's great at pulling that moisture out. Great at forming it as well too, and also great at screwing up the shape of it if you're not doing it correctly as well too. You might get a little lump in the middle of the cigar, but then you're like, hey, uh, maybe I underfilled it in that spot or something like that. So it's more of an educational tool in more areas if you just keep your perspective open.
So far, this all was basically more of an experiment for you. You make
Yeah.
micro batch sometimes, just I think 2 for yourself, cigars that you roll, but now you're kind of are in the process of planning the next step. Do you have any ideas how you go on now? Do you think of, maybe now I have to get some kind of a signature taste, and maybe now I have to go from micro batch to small batch, or
Yep.
what do you think? How do you go on?
So, that's a great question. Um, I've started a cigar company. Um, I've gone through all the licensing, so I've hired the attorneys. I've applied for the licenses on my own, which is very difficult. It's very time consuming. Um, and I've had applications come back. Oh, you need to fill out this. Oh, okay, okay. So a lot of trial and error, but yeah. So I do have my manufacturing license in the state of Wisconsin, manufacturing, distribution, remote seller, and also like a salesperson license as well. So I'm authorized legally to be able to sell blends that I roll um, currently in the state of Wisconsin. So more to that, there's on the retail aspect of it. I want to ideally get into other retailers, but I can't sell online right now. Um, but in the USA, there's also excise tax. So being registered with different states, I'm in the process of uh, under understanding, but also in the process of applying, because you need to be registered in each state, because every state is very different when it comes to excise taxes and how they're taxed. So no commonalities there. Um, but I'm planning on still doing my personal micro batch but also going to small batch. So I have been in discussions with 2 different factories, and I've sent them different blends. They've sent me stuff back. I've made suggestions and tweaks just through the mail, because I haven't been able to get down to the Dominican Republic yet, which is where they're located. But I need to. I need to sooner rather than later, because right now it's just a lot of extra time in between mailing, giving suggestions, going back, back and forth on that process. Being able to go down there does speed up the process overall. Uh, but I'm at a point now where there are some blends that I've landed on, and I'm also into the designing and discussions with band making, packaging, labeling, stuff like that, and all the different costs that are associated with all of that as well too. So it does all add up pretty quickly. You know, uh, 10 cents doesn't sound like much, but when you're talking about 10 cents times, multiple thousands of cigars, uh, it's a much bigger number than 10 cents.
Yeah.
You know?
So basically, you go on with the way you did this before, but can now kind of sell the cigars you make yourself. And then on the other hand, you have or are in talks with some factories in the Dominican where you have sent them cigars you made, and they kind of do something similar with the tobacco they have
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and
Yep.
try to nail the flavor profile. Or
Yep. Or, and some of them, they would look at the blend and be like, okay, Jeff, I might have this suggestion based upon the leaf that we have available, because the leaf I have that I've used is not the same leaf that they have and they use. So there's a bit of trying to meet in the middle, but also uh, make it good, make the flavors pop, make it an enjoyable cigar.
so you don't go there and say do exactly the same. It is still a process, and well, kind of a play on what you
Correct.
send them to create something new.
Correct. And then trying that out and then seeing if there's any tweaks, or any differences. That's the part I think that is, I don't want to say challenging, but is intriguing, because different availabilities of tobacco, different years, um, different qualities of, maybe same types of tobacco. The Piloto Cubano Dominican tobacco that I have compared to the Piloto Cubano tobacco that they have. I mean, there's going to be differences between them, um, and characteristics of strength, flavor, combustibility. So it's very interesting. So that's another reason why I'm excited to get down there sooner rather than later, to dive like face first into all of it, and just be like, what do you have available? What can we get? I have made suggestions on certain types of tobacco to see if they have or if they can get. Um, but some of it is hard to get, or you have to order such large quantities of it for them that uh, they just don't want it to sit. They want to be able to move it. But hopefully, I have a plan for that, and hopefully it works. And That's why I need to get down to the Dominican Republic, because I have a plan, and hopefully um, there's meeting of the minds and similar mentalities on how I look at it as well too.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
So with those, you would also keep your brand small batch so that you have short runs of different blends that you can make and that are more play driven, or do you still think there is a signature taste that you want to find so that people always can say, okay, that is made by?
Right. That's an excellent question. Um, I think that, at least for now, it's small batch. It's definitely going to be small batch starting out, and I feel as if time evolves, or if particular small batches um, are more popular than others, you know, uh, cornering more leaf, making sure more leaf is available for those types of ones to create kind of that signature flavor profile or signature type of cigar for the brand. Um, right now, at least in my thought process and where everything is, the micro batch I gets me excited just because you know uh, the factories that I've been talking to they're not super big. They're a lot smaller. They they don't have hundreds of rollers. They might have 2 dozen, 3 dozen, 1 dozen types of rollers. So um, it's it's the attention to detail and the quality that I feel like you can get out of a smaller factory, more of a micro batch type style. I feel that you can get better quality um, for working with them. It's if you have 2,000 or let's say 10,000 cigars out of a smaller factory, you know, it's going to be more hours worked for each of those pairs of workers, um, compared to say, and I'm not dogging, any other big factory, but what, let's say AJ Fernandez, or he's got massive factory, massive amounts of tobacco that are going in. I think that, and granted, his cigars are great, but I think that in the smaller capacity, you have a little bit more hyper focused attention to the quality, to the output that you're actually getting on a more of a micro batch type style. In addition, you're helping those families. You're helping that factory. You know, you're growing with a smaller partner that could evolve both the brand I'm trying to build, but also grow that factory into maybe the scale that they want to grow into. So the entire whole process, I guess I would say, and partnership.
Yeah. Also, I think it makes sense because you kind of um, doing this or finding your way into this industry as an underdog. So why don't
Yeah,
work with underdogs?
right. Yep. 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 And I like to be transparent. I think that no, it's an agricultural product. It's something that can be grown. Uh, do I feel that every cigar these days constitutes a $30 price tag? No. Um, I think that you can still create wonderful cigars with high quality tobacco um, at a lower price point. Now, don't get me wrong. Could I say, as things progress, that hey, maybe I'll come up with a $30 cigar? Yeah, maybe. I don't want to say that I wouldn't, but I think that the price points that are out there. I mean, these larger companies, they have more overhead, they have more um items that they need to pay for. So on the smaller scale, I think uh, I could get great quality, if not the greatest quality, in my opinion, for my palate and many people's palates at a smaller price point, just due to not a lot of overhead, keeping running the business kind of lean, uh, and being able to pass more savings off to um, the regular cigar smoker. Uh, I remember back when cigars were, when they were $8 a cigar, people were like, "Wow, that's a lot." Um, Nowadays, it's like, an $8 cigar is not as expensive as some of the stuff that we're seeing come out, and I'm not here to argue with those big companies. Um, I just think that the stuff that I've been trying, the stuff that I've been tasting, I feel that everybody deserves to try this tobacco because it is that good. It is it's phenomenal stuff that are coming out of these small factories, man.
But a small batch, right?
Small batch right now. Yep. Yep. Even and, and even with small batch, the amount of volume that I'm able to put out or am looking to bring to the market initially as like a kickoff, um, it's it's not even the cheapest for me because in the cigar world, volume drives the price down. So even with my volume, it's uh it's a higher cost per stick. But I firmly believe that it could still be at a reasonable retail price point, even on a small batch type style like what I'm doing, um, based upon what my goals are. Would I love to be able to produce a million cigars of one type of blend? Yeah, and I'm sure that the price point would be super low, but that's just not the case yet. You know?
Yeah, not yet. But basically, right now, kind of in a pay it forward situation.
Yeah,
So far, failing forward went quite nice. Jeff put together a couple of blends and rolled them into cigar, all based on his idea of what I might like flavor-wise and when it comes to size. And in my opinion, he doesn't need to hide his blends at all. In the next episode, we'll talk about how he's building his brand identity right now. See you next time.